as we're talking about this, but what is the Clearwater native? You're a veteran commercial brewer. What brought you here?
I was fortunately referred to Richard Gonsmart and invited to be a part of this project. It intrigued me, his passion for the idea of resurrecting Tampa Heights as a community, that taking a building that was in total disrepair and distress, yet simultaneously had such a wealth of history behind it. The site having 5 natural springs, the building being a pump station. You factor in all the significance of the pre-Western man artifacts that have been found here.
Very cool.
You know, so you look at all this and encompass it together in one package, and he explains to me his image, his vision, his idea of Princess Ulele and who she was, and she really was a real person, and what her story can do to infuse the spirit of the city of Tampa, and it just ignited me, and so I was able to take all of his passion and try to deliver it into a fresh, handcrafted, pure lager beer, something that no other craft brewer is doing regularly in the area.
It's one of the more picturesque breweries you could ever imagine.
I would like to say it's one thing that my friend, the chief marketing officer, Michael Kilgore, likes to say, and that is, this is a destination location.
Absolutely. 100%.
People come out to Ulele and they experience this awesome restaurant with our 10-foot barbacoa grill, our dry-aged steaks, our outstanding seafood selections. Chef Eric Lackey is unsurpassed in his ability. And they also see the Riverwalk on the most majestic vantage point of the Hillsborough River.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Just outside of Tampa, downtown. And the fact that you've got this matching of private and public funds coming together at such a pinnacle of a moment in our history, right. To be allowed to be a part of that process is a privilege.
Absolutely. Expand on the destination part, because I know that you don't keg, you don't distribute, we don't leave this building with beer pretty much.
The long-term plan ultimately will be to roll out the kegs when the time is right. Right now, our goal and objective is to absolutely perform the best that we can and execute within the restaurant and brewery to get through the first year. We want to see some of the Canadians come down and taste our beers and build business within our own local community. The whole idea behind the founding of Ulele was to get the community involved. These are things that have been absent from this area for a very long time, and to be able to plant that seed, in my opinion, long term, hopefully in my lifetime, we'll be able to see the seeds of prosperity begin to sprout.
Fantastic. And talking about history and the rich, I see you guys got a couple more barrels here from Patron. So I guess Richard came back with those, huh?
He's they took a special trip down to Mexico. They have special ordered 5 more additional.
All right.
Each barrel is it holds between 330 and 350 individual bottles of tequila. So we are able to have the distiller bottle the product as a signature barrel series, which we then can sell not only here at Ulele, but at the Gonsmart family's Columbia restaurant. Right. And we do the same thing with bourbon as well. Our brand ambassador, Keith Sedita, has just returned recently from Kentucky and visiting the Heaven Hill Distillery and the Knob Creek and a few other places. Those barrels are great because they deliver signature flavor.
Different. It's unique, certainly.
And the other difference is that I take, unlike a lot of brewers, I don't like to ferment in barrels. I happen to think that malolactic fermentation in barrels, in most cases with most beers that I produce, creates an undesirable effect. So what I do is I take the cold barrel in storage and I fill the barrel with finished lager. And I allow it to age under cold conditions, which prevents harmful bacterial contamination, while at the same time just delivers the goods. With
Right,
the,
the goods.
With the distilled spirit essence, the essence of the tannins of the wood, whether it's American, Hungarian, or French oak.
It's delicious. It just sounds delicious.
Thank you.
New beers in the works. What's on the horizon?
Well, you know, I'm a minimalist by nature, but ever since I've opened Ulele Brewery, I've had the same horde of people come and ask me for IPA. And since I don't traditionally, I do brew ales on occasion, but since it's not a normal beer style that I like to produce, we have a wonderful pale lager on tap already called Waterworks Pale Lager that's finished with New Zealand hops. But what I was thinking about would be an India Pale Lager, something significantly stronger, assertively hopped. But I don't particularly care for the IPAs that have strong astringent finishes. If I'm going to deliver those hops and that the IBUs, I really like to have them at the middle of the boil.
Just keep it there and then let it.
It's the challenge with hops, especially when they have a high alpha acid, is what time do you add them during the boil? What form do you add them? Do you go fresh hop,
pelleted, right?
Pelletized, and how long do you cook the beer to allow those flavors to come together?
Yeah.
And the key would be to take the individual selections of hops, and instead of trying to create a single-minded type of flavor profile, to create a fusion of these hops that allows for balance and drinkability.
I heard you talking about that inside of it. It's all about balance and being able to drink the beer.
I think it's a term that craft brewers tend to snort with a little bit of derision at. They hear people speak of balanced beers and they think of the large brewers. Since when did they steal that term? You know, I think it's okay for us as craft brewers to be honest with ourselves and say, what does it take to deliver the best beer to the tap? Can we ask ourselves, if we make this barley wine that's single hopped and 100 IBUs, that every person that walks in the room, are they going to really love it? Are they just saying that they love it?
Right.
Are they just going to say they love it and order one? Or do you want them to have two or three? So these are questions I ask myself all the time, and I'm consistently kicking my own tire. But ultimately, an IPL is in the works right now.
Fantastic.
And I'm also currently working on something special for the summer.
Excellent. That's great info. No, I'm an IPA guy, so an IPA. Actually, I prefer IPLs because they're a little easier to drink. You know, I love a good IPA when it kicks your taste buds in the sides, but it's not something you can always reach for.
You know, the beauty of lager yeast is when you have fermentation end, the yeast is still active and in suspension. So what happens is it acts like the cement to a beer. Because the yeast is ambient and in suspension for an extended period of time at cold conditions, it's not only during fermentation did it deliver with a lack of phenolics or esters, but by having the yeast in the liquids in suspension, it subdues a lot of those sharp flavors that would otherwise come out in a very pronounced way as far as fusel alcohols and these types of alcohols that are created by ale fermentation. So I'm interested, and I've been experimenting with it, but you can't rush a lager, and that's really what it just comes down to. Bottom line truth, you can't use biofine, you can't use diatomaceous earth. You got to allow the yeast to settle. It just takes time.
And that's the challenge, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's a challenge.
All right, misconceptions. What are they? Ones that bother you the most?
Well, as far as misconceptions from our patrons, I view those as opportunities. Because a lot of people come out and they say certain things, they have certain preconceived notions about beer styles. And to have the opportunity to give them a few moments to reflect in the presence of a 2,100 square foot, 15-barrel brew house and explain to them the beauty of what we're doing.
You turn a lot of people that way.
Yeah, people start opening their minds and they say, hey, maybe I need to broaden my horizons a little bit. But I tell you what is irksome, and that is the political climate behind craft brewers and big brewers. I'm not saying we all need to sing Kumbaya. It's a business.
Yeah.
But why not start worrying less about everybody else and worrying more about yourself? I've come to find a lot of success in my career by becoming a minimalist. And I detract from trying to make big, huge things. And I look at the individual malts and grains and hops and the process itself that delivers so much joy to me personally on the factory floor. You know, and when I start thinking about those things, then what happens is it's no longer what everybody else's problem. It's all comes from within, and that's a true reflection.
And I think
of beauty of beer.
And I think you can certainly understand that when you try the beers that you have here. I've been to a lot of local breweries, and you can just tell something's a little different. It's a little bit more thought out.
I call it there's a couple things I call it. One is the double down. You know, I want people to say to themselves, "Wow, I can't believe I'm already on my fourth beer." You know, have that effect where, you know what, I could deliver authentic craft beer flavor that people truly appreciate, but I don't have to sacrifice the drinkability. Right. Why should we? It becomes to me very personal, because beer is a lot like food. A lot of people drink beer to sate their thirst, and and that is a very raw emotion. And if you always incorporate that emotion when you're trying to develop a recipe over a long period of time, what happens is something different. You know, that's one of the joys of using the lager yeast strain and developing the beers that say, "Hey, we're gonna grab your tongue with a lot of flavor, but we're just simply not gonna slap you across the face."
Yeah, and bring you back for more.
Yeah, yeah. We're only as good as our last beer served.
Right. All right, looking for pairings. The grouper you really like, what would you pair? If you
There
don't
would be
have
two
it,
beers on my mind. One would be the Waterworks Pale Lager. That's a great go-to beer for any seafood item on our menu at Ulele. Another would be the Magby's Honey Lager. A lot of times when you have dishes like that, the honey, which although it's completely fermented out of the beer, the presence of the florals, the aromatics, the light flavor of the honey, it tends to just bring something out.
And it does well with the flavor, because like when we tried it inside, you know, a lot of honey lagers in general, you can feel this honey. It's almost a weight on your tongue. And,
yeah.
And that is just a very drinkable for a honey beer. I'm very impressed.
That was probably my most challenging beer. It has taken me very, very many years to develop. Because, well, frankly, CO2 creation during fermentation tends to scrub out a lot of the flavor. So we had to immediately source local honey, which produces a superior aromatic.
Yeah, well, it's a fantastic product.
Thanks.
And I overheard you talking about, you know, the charbroiled oysters with the honey lager. What about a half shell?
Well, you could start off with the Ulele Light. Here's our best-selling beer. Award-winning, state of Florida, premium American lager, cold fermented, floral and spicy German noble hops, German malts, finishing with a light and clean grain finish.
That's what I can see with that, with the saltiness of those oysters, you know, just kind of cuts right through that and just leaves you refreshed almost.
It would tend to lightly cleanse the palate instead of coming up with a firm backbone,
or replacing it with that IPA, you know, that piney, that real floral citrus. I think it's a fantastic suggestion.
Yeah, the whole idea would be to drink more.
Yeah, right. It keeps you coming back. It's like peanuts at a bar.
Yeah.
How about fried quail, country fried quail? Now, that's interesting just because of the way it's prepared.
One of my absolute favorite appetizers on our menu. It is the one item that is just a go-to item for me.
I haven't had it yet.
It's so pleasant. It's so delicate yet sumptuous and delicious. It's a wonderfully prepared appetizer. Chef Eric is a genius. That's all I can say. I would say that the way that is designed with the mustard sauce and the leaves on it, match it with either the honey lager or the Rusty's Red. These are two beers that would embrace the mustard seeds in a symphony instead of clashing. Because you really want to bring the natural flavor of the quail to the forefront, but it's difficult to do because it is such a light, delicate meat. But this would allow all those elements to come together, especially with I would think with the honey lager.
Filet mignon.
Without a doubt, the filet mignon that's my favorite cut of meat.
My wife's too.
A wet-aged Strickland Ranch, fresh from Florida product that has been sourced with the spent grain from the brewing process from right here at Ulele Spring Brewery. I would absolutely say the Rusty's Red would be my number one choice. You gotta. The cool thing about Rusty's Red is you got 40 IBUs in the beer, so it's a gripping hop beer, and it comes up right up front to you, and then it rolls into a little bit of citrus. The citrus melts into a little bit of caramel, and then you swallow it and you think, wow, that's it. But no, that's not it. 4 or 5 seconds after you swallow that beer, you've got just the ever so slightest kiss of roasted chocolate. And that was the key, is at the end.
Brings that grilled flavor, it brings it all right back together.
You've got char-grilled a steak of the highest quality, and it just melts in your mouth. You could literally cut it with a butter knife, and then you factor in the Rusty's Red, just bringing it all down. And at the end of it all, you've got fresh char-grilled steak with a light little roasted chocolate kiss. And it's just a wonderful match.
That's incredible. That sounds wonderful. All right, frog legs. You got to ask all the frog legs.
Frog legs, that has always been first of all, they're delicious.
I haven't had them either, but man, I want to.
They're delicious. And true to our native-inspired food and spirits menu, we thought we'd deliver those to the table. And it is a fine delicacy when prepared properly. And again, I go back to my chef, Eric Galacki, our chef, being so talented. I would say that you could encourage a lot of flavor out of the frog leg appetizer with the wedding beer. You've got a natural infusion of a blend of berries into a cold fermented German lager. This is a great matching, not just for the frog legs, but for dessert too.
When you get any of that kind of that fruity notes to it, it complements dessert well. But I could see it with the frog legs too, because you think lemon juice or something else that's kind of gonna have a little bit of not a strong flavor, but something's going to point out to you there. So I think that wedding beer with that fruity note will kind of come in there and make a nice combination.
I like to think of it as a tasting path instead of a tasting collision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's got to walk hand in hand. It has to.
Yeah.
Has to. Let's just see the last one here. Roasted beets and poached pear salad.
The sauces on that salad just really are absolutely astounding. Your expectation is one thing, and then when it comes to the table, you're just completely blown away. Yeah. How could you take all these simple components and put together something so beautiful? I would say that, give me a moment.
Take your time. I'm just reading the ingredients: the blackberry honey, toasted almonds, charred red onion. I mean, there's a lot in that.
Again, back to another, I'm sounding like a broken record. Honey lager. Honey lager would do justice to that particular dish because of the nature of the combination of the sauces. The fruits in the sauces would work well with the honey. And the beets are sweet.
Yeah. Well, the pear is going to have that little, not a roasty flavor, but it's reminiscent of that because it kind of like, and again, I haven't had it, but I can just imagine that it's gonna have some of those same characters.
Like you ever reduce a sauce,
yeah, like balsamic,
and you add something to the sauce, and it brings it out a little bit. Yeah. I think with the honey lager, with that particular dish, there's some very concentrated flavors, and because the honey is all fermented out, yet the flavor of the honey still remains. You reintroduce sweetness to the palate.
Yeah, it's an insanely drinkable beer. That really is.
I could chug it. I'm not going to lie to you.
I want to do more. I feel like we could sit here and chat for hours.
We could.